The ship came out of hyperspace with a soft hum. Captain Park stood at the center of the bridge, her hands behind her back, her eyes fixed on the massive structure ahead. The Galactic Council station floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal flower. Each petal stretched out in a different direction, representing a different part of the galaxy. Lights blinked across its surface like stars. Had dreamed of this moment since she was a little girl. Every human had. For 30 years, Earth had worked toward this day. They had built better ships. They had trained their best people. They had prepared speeches and gifts and promises of friendship. And finally, the invitation had come. The Galactic Council, the ruling body of 347 alien civilizations, had invited humanity to present themselves. "It is beautiful," said Lieutenant Moon from her station. She was young, smart, and had been chosen for this mission because she was one of the best communication officers in the fleet. Her fingers moved across her console as she monitored all incoming signals. "It is," agreed, but something in her stomach felt heavy. She did not know why. Behind them, the door to the bridge opened. Diplomat Shin walked in, holding a tablet in his hands. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He had spent his entire life preparing for this moment. For 20 years, he had studied every alien species they knew about. He had learned their customs, their languages, their histories. He believed, truly believed, that today would change everything for humanity. "I have reviewed my speech one more time," said. "I think it is good. I talk about our history, our growth, our desire for peace. I mention our mistakes too because I want to be honest. I think they will respect honesty." Turned to look at him. She respected. He was a good man, but she had been a soldier for too long to believe that good intentions were enough. "I am sure it is perfect," she said, "but stay alert. We do not know these beings. We only know what they have allowed us to know." Smiled. "You worry too much, Captain. This is a diplomatic mission. They invited us. Why would they do that if they did not want us?" Did not answer. She turned back to the viewport. The horizon moved closer to the station. It was Earth's finest ship. Not a warship, but a vessel built for exploration and diplomacy. It was sleek and white, with the blue symbol of Earth painted on its hull. 150 crew members lived aboard, all of them chosen for their skills and their character. They represented the best of humanity. "We are being hailed," announced. "They are sending docking instructions." "On screen," ordered. The main flickered to life. A cold, mechanical voice spoke. "Human vessel, you are assigned to docking bay 94. Proceed immediately. Do not deviate from the assigned path. Do not attempt communication with other vessels. Do not activate any scanning equipment." The message ended. No greeting, no welcome, just orders. Frowned. That was brief. "Follow their instructions," said. "Exactly as they said." The horizon moved toward the station. As they got closer, noticed something. The docking bay they were assigned to was small. Very small. It was tucked away in a lower section of the station, far from the grand entrances she could see on the upper levels. Ships from other species were docking at wide, beautiful ports with lights and banners. Humanity's port looked like it was meant for garbage ships. "Captain," said quietly, "this bay is. It is in the service section. According to my data, this area is used for cargo and waste disposal." Smile faded. Perhaps it is a mistake. Perhaps they do not have room elsewhere. "Perhaps," said, but she did not believe it. The ship docked with a gentle bump. The airlock connected, straightened her uniform and looked at her crew. "Remember why we are here," she said. "We represent every human being on Earth. Every child, every elder, every dreamer who looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone. Today, we show the galaxy who we are. Stay calm, stay proud, stay human." The airlock opened. On the other side, there was no welcoming committee, no officials in fancy robes, no music or ceremony. There was only a single drone floating in the air. It was a simple machine, the kind used for giving directions in spaceports. "Humans," the drone said in a flat voice, You will proceed to Observation Deck 7. You will wait there until you are called. Do not wander. Do not touch anything. Do not speak to other species unless spoken to first. Stepped forward. I am Diplomat Shin, official representative of Earth. We were told there would be a formal welcome. We have brought gifts for the Council. We have prepared. Observation Deck 7, the drone repeated. Follow the lights on the floor, do not wander. It floated away. The delegation stood in silence. There were 12 of them in total. Scientists, officers, diplomats, all dressed in their finest uniforms. They had imagined this moment 1,000 times. None of them had imagined this. Stepped closer to. They are treating us like animals, she whispered. Like we are visiting a zoo and they do not want us to touch the exhibits. His face remained calm, but her eyes were hard. Smile, she said quietly. Watch everything, learn everything, and do not let them see your anger. They followed the lights on the floor. The corridors were wide and beautiful, filled with strange plants and flowing water features. Aliens of all shapes and sizes walked past them. Some had scales, some had fur, some floated, some crawled. Most did not even look at the humans. The few who did looked at them the way a person might look at an insect. Observation Deck 7 was a small room with a window that looked out at the stars. There were no chairs, no refreshments, just empty space and cold walls. We wait here, said, his voice now quiet. They said they will call us. Walk to the window. She looked out at the stars, at the countless ships coming and going, at the massive station that represented the power of a galaxy. She thought about Earth, small, blue, fragile Earth, home to 8 billion people who were hoping at this very moment that their representatives would return with good news. She thought about all the struggles humanity had faced, the wars, the plagues, the disasters, and yet they had survived, they had built, they had dreamed, they had reached for the stars. And now the stars were looking back at them with cold, uncaring eyes. Captain said softly, what do you think will happen? Did not turn from the window. I do not know, she admitted, but I know this. Whatever happens in that chamber, we will face it with our heads high. We are human, we have faced worse. She placed her hand against the cold glass of the window. We have always faced worse. The council chamber was the largest room had ever seen. It stretched upward like the inside of a mountain, with hundreds of levels rising toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. Each level held seats for different species, arranged in a careful order. The oldest and most powerful civilization sat at the top, looking down on everyone else. The weakest stood at the bottom. Humanity stood at the very bottom. Their section was marked with a small sign that translated quietly. Gallery of Primitives, she whispered, her voice tight with anger. That is what it says, Gallery of Primitives. Closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, his face was calm. It does not matter what they call us, he said. What matters is what we say, what we do. Let us show them who we really are. The chamber was filling up. Aliens of every kind took their seats. Some were massive, with bodies like mountains. Some were tiny, floating in special containers. Some looked almost human. Others looked like nothing had ever imagined. 347 species, all gathered in one place. And every single one of them was looking down at the small group of humans standing at the bottom. A loud sound echoed through the chamber. It was a kind of bell, deep and ancient. The crowd fell silent. At the very top of the chamber, a platform floated forward. On it stood 2 beings. The first was tall and thin, with skin that looked like crystal. Light moved inside his body, shifting colors as he moved. This was High Arbiter, the leader of the Galactic Council. He was over 4,000 years old, and his species had been in space for more than 100,000 years. The second being was shorter, with 6 limbs and scales that shimmered like oil on water. This was Speaker, the voice of the council. It was her job to present information to the assembly. The council is now in session, announced. His voice was cold and smooth like ice sliding over stone. Today we review several matters. First, the petition of the species known as humans from the planet called Earth in the outer arm of the galaxy. Stepped forward, she held a glowing tablet in two of her hands. Species designation human, Earth, star system Sol, space-faring age 43 standard years. A murmur went through the crowd. 43 years. To species that had been in space for thousands or millions of years, this was nothing. This was the blink of an eye. Classification, continued, Tier 9, pre-developmental primitive. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not loud, cruel laughter, but the quiet, dismissive kind. The kind that said these creatures are not worth our time. Stepped forward. A small platform rose under his feet, lifting him slightly so the council could see him better. He cleared his throat and began to speak. Honored members of the Galactic Council, he said, his voice steady. I am Shin, representative of Earth and all humanity. I come before you today not as a conqueror or a threat, but as a friend, a neighbor, a fellow traveler in this vast universe. He paused, looking around the chamber. Most of the aliens were not even looking at him. Some were talking among themselves. Some were checking devices. Only a few seemed to be paying attention. Continued. Yes, we are young. Yes, we have only been in space for a short time, but in that short time we have achieved much. We have cured diseases that once killed millions. We have built machines that think. We have sent our people to other worlds, and through it all we have never stopped dreaming, never stopped reaching, never stopped hopping. His voice grew stronger. We have made mistakes. We do not deny this. We have fought wars. We have hurt our own planet. We have been cruel to each other, but we have also shown kindness. We have built schools and hospitals. We have created art and music that moves the soul. We have loved and sacrificed and hoped. We are not perfect, but we are trying. Every day we are trying to be better. For a moment the chamber was quiet, felt a small spark of hope. Maybe they were listening. Maybe words were reaching them. Then spoke. You say you have achieved much, she said, her voice dripping with something that sounded like amusement. Let us examine these achievements. She pressed a button on her tablet. A massive screen appeared in the air above the chamber. On it was a video, a nuclear explosion, a mushroom cloud rising over a city. You discovered the power of the atom, narrated. And the first thing you did was use it to destroy 2 cities full of your own kind, hundreds of thousands dead, in seconds. The video changed. Wars, soldiers, bodies, burning villages. You have fought over 1,000 major wars in the last 300 years alone. Wars over land, wars over resources, wars over the color of your skin, wars over which invisible god you pray to. More videos. Factories pumping smoke into the sky, forests burning, oceans filled with garbage. You are destroying your own planet, the only home you have ever known, and yet you come here asking to join us. The laughter was louder now. Some aliens were pointing at the screen, shaking their heads. Raised his hand, if I may respond. His microphone went silent. He kept talking, but no sound came out. He looked around, confused, then looked at. She could see the pain in his eyes. Your time is concluded, said flatly. The council has seen enough. Floated forward on his platform. We have reviewed the human petition. We have examined their history, their culture, their capabilities. We have reached a decision. The chamber fell silent. Every eye, every sensor, every attention was on the High Arbiter. Humanity is granted provisional observer status. His face lit up with hope. This means, continued, that humans may observe council proceedings from outside the station. Via delayed broadcast, humans will have no voice in this chamber, no vote, no representation, no presence. The hope in his eyes died. Return to your world, said. Improve yourselves, control your violent tendencies. Learn to live in peace. Perhaps in 10,000 years you may petition again. The chamber erupted in applause. Aliens stamped their feet, clicked their claws, made sounds of approval in 100 different ways. They were applauding the rejection of humanity. They were celebrating it. Watched, the man who had spent his entire life working for this moment. The man who had believed, truly believed, that words and kindness and honesty would be enough. He stood on his small platform, his microphone dead, his dreams shattered, while 347 species laughed at everything he stood for. She felt something inside her chest. It was not sadness. It was not fear. It was cold, quiet, patient rage. She did not show it on her face. She had been a soldier too long for that, but she felt it in her bones. They would remember this day, she decided. All of them, every species that laughed, every arbiter that dismissed them, every speaker that mocked them. They would remember. And they would learn that humanity was not so easily broken, but the council was not finished. Had expected them to dismiss the human delegation immediately after the announcement. She had expected to be escorted back to their ship and sent home. That would have been cruel enough. But what happened next was something far worse. Before our human visitors depart, speaker announced, the council has prepared an educational presentation. For the benefit of all assembled species, we will examine the human civilization in greater detail. The massive screens flickered to life again, stomach tightened. Let us begin with their early history, said, her voice taking on the tone of a teacher explaining something to very slow children. Images appeared on the screen. Ancient humans dressed in animal skins fighting each other with rocks and sticks, bodies lying in the dirt, blood on primitive weapons. From their earliest days, humans have displayed remarkable aggression. They hunted other species to extinction. They fought endless wars over territory. Violence, it seems, is written into their very nature. The images changed. Slavery, chains, humans being bought and sold like animals. They even enslaved their own kind. For thousands of years, humans captured each other, forced each other to work, treated each other as property, based on nothing more than where they were born or the color of their skin. A murmur of disgust rippled through the chamber. Saw aliens shaking their heads, making gestures of disapproval. Lieutenant stood rigid beside her, hands clenched into fists. They are cherry-picking, she whispered through gritted teeth. They are only showing the worst parts. Of course they are, replied quietly. That is the point. The presentation continued. Religious wars, the burning of people who believed in different gods, the torture of scientists who dared to speak the truth, colonization, conquest, genocide. Each image was carefully chosen. Each video was designed to make humanity look as terrible as possible. And with each new horror, the laughter and disgust from the assembled species grew louder. Then the presentation moved to modern times. In what humans call the 20th century, narrated, their violent tendencies reached new heights. World War I, trenches filled with bodies, soldiers dying in mud for a few feet of ground. World War II, concentration camps, mountains of shoes and glasses taken from the dead, the faces of children, terrified, lost, doomed. In a single conflict, humans killed over 70 million of their own kind. 70 million, the population of some entire planets. The nuclear bombs appeared again on screen, the blinding flash, the mushroom cloud, the shadows of people burned into walls. And then, said, they built enough of these weapons to destroy their entire world. Not once, not twice, but many times over. They pointed these weapons at each other for decades, living every day knowing that everything they loved could be erased in an instant. She paused, letting the image sink in. The chamber was silent now, not laughing, just staring at the screens with a mixture of horror and fascination. This is humanity, concluded. A species that builds tools of destruction faster than tools of creation. A species that cannot go more than a few decades without trying to destroy itself. a species that, by all calculations, will likely extinct itself within the next 3 centuries. She turned to look down at the human delegation. The Council does not reject humanity out of cruelty. We reject humanity for the safety of all civilized species. You are not ready. You may never be ready. You are, simply put, too dangerous to be trusted. The chamber erupted in applause once again, longer this time, louder. Some species were stamping their feet so hard the floor shook. Stood frozen. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. 30 years of work. His entire life's purpose. Destroyed in 30 minutes by a presentation designed to humiliate him. One of the younger diplomats, a man named, stepped forward angrily. This is not fair. You are only showing the bad things. What about our art, our music, our science? What about the people who spent their lives helping others? What about? His microphone cut off. 2 security drones floated toward him, their arms extending, grabbed his arm and pulled him back. Not now, she said firmly. This is not the time. But Captain, not now. Fell silent, his eyes burning with frustrated tears. High Arbiter raised one crystalline hand. The chamber fell quiet. The human delegation will now be escorted back to their vessel, he announced. They have 24 hours to leave Council space. They are not to return without explicit invitation. Any human vessel that enters Council space without permission will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. He looked down at the humans, his face expressionless. Go home, young species, grow up, learn peace. Perhaps your greats great will be ready for the stars, but you are not. The security drones surrounded the human delegation. There was no choice but to follow. As they walked through the corridors, past the beautiful fountains and the strange plants, past aliens who now looked at them with open contempt, kept her head high. She walked like she was on a parade ground, straight, proud, unbroken. But inside, her mind was working. They had prepared for this, she realized. The Council had prepared this presentation in advance. They had collected those videos, those images, those statistics. They had not invited humanity here to consider their petition. They had invited humanity here to make an example of them, to show the entire galaxy what happened to young species who dared to reach for the stars. This was not a rejection. This was a message. Stay in your place. Know your role. Do not challenge us. When they reached the docking bay, finally spoke. What do we do now, Captain? Stopped at the airlock. She turned to face her crew, all of them, the diplomats with their broken hopes, the officers with their quiet rage, the scientists who had dreamed of sharing knowledge with the stars. We go home, she said. We report what happened, and then. She paused, her eyes moving to the window. Outside, the Council station glittered in the darkness, beautiful and cold and arrogant. And then we decide what kind of species we want to be. Stepped forward, his voice was hoarse. I am sorry I failed us. I failed everyone. Shook her head. No, you did not fail. You showed them our best. You showed them our dreams and our hopes and our honesty. You did everything right. Then why did they reject us? Because they were never going to accept us. His voice was calm but certain. They decided that before we even arrived. They just wanted to make sure we knew how small they think we are. She placed a hand on the old diplomat's shoulder. But here is the thing about being underestimated. People who underestimate you always forget to watch their backs. The airlock opened. The human delegation boarded the horizon. Behind them, the lights of the Council station flickered like cold, distant stars. The door closed, and in the silence of the ship began to plan. The corridors of the station were quieter now. Most species had returned to their ships or their quarters. The great show of humiliating humanity was over, and everyone had moved on to other business. The humans were already forgotten, like a brief entertainment that had run its course. Walked at the front of the delegation, following the security drones toward the docking bay. Her mind was racing, but her face showed nothing. Years of military training had taught her how to hide her thoughts, how to appear calm when everything inside her was screaming. They turned a corner, and a figure stepped out of the shadows. The security drone stopped. Their lights flashed in warning. "I mean no harm," said the figure. It was an alien, tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face. He wore robes of deep purple, and his hands were raised in a gesture of peace. Ambassador whispered to Empire, "They are old but not the oldest, powerful but not the most powerful. They usually stay neutral in council politics." Spoke quickly, his voice low. "Captain Park, I must speak with you briefly. It is important." The security drones buzzed angrily. "This is irregular. The human delegation must proceed to their vessel immediately." Turned his 4 eyes to the drones. "I am an ambassador of the Empire. I have diplomatic immunity and the right to speak with any visiting delegation. You may report this conversation if you wish, but you will not interfere." The drones hesitated. Their programming was fighting with itself. Finally, they moved back a few feet, hovering in silent disapproval. Turned back to, "I must be quick. Others will notice if I speak to you for too long." "Then speak," said. "I am sorry for what happened today. Not all of us agree with the Arbiter and his methods. Some of us believe the Council has become too old, too set in its ways, too afraid of change." Studied him carefully. "Why are you telling me this? What do you want?" "I want nothing. I am simply warning you." Looked around nervously. "The presentation you saw today, the images of human violence and destruction, they were not compiled by scholars. They were compiled by the Council's Intelligence Division. They have been watching your species for decades, learning everything about you." "We assumed as much," said. "We knew we were being observed." "Yes, but do you know why they chose to humiliate you so thoroughly? Why they did not simply reject your petition quietly?" Moved closer, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "They are afraid of you, Captain." Made a sound of disbelief. "Afraid? They just called us primitives. They laughed at us." "That is exactly what afraid people do. They mock what they fear. They try to make it seem small and weak." 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Your species went from wooden sailing ships to starships in 300 years. Do you understand how impossible that is?" Frowned. "We worked hard. We learned quickly." "No, you do not understand," shook his head. "They have been in space for 90,000 years. It took us 12,000 years to develop faster-than-light travel. They who sit at the top of the Council took 20,000 years. The average for all known species is 15,000 years." He pointed at with one long finger. "Humanity did it in less than 200 years. From the first powered flight to starships in less than 2 centuries. That is not normal. That is not even possible. And yet you did it." The corridor was silent except for the soft hum of the station systems. Felt something cold run down her spine. "You are saying they rejected us not because we are weak," she said slowly, "but because we are dangerous." "Not dangerous yet, but you could be. The Council runs predictive models. Simulations of how species will develop over the next 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 1,000,000 years. His voice was urgent now. Every model, every simulation shows the same thing. If humanity continues on its current path, you will surpass every species in this galaxy within 500 years. 500 years, that is nothing. That is tomorrow. Stepped forward, his young face twisted with anger. Then why not help us? Why not guide us? If we are going to become so powerful, would it not be better to be our friends than our enemies? Let out a sound that might have been a laugh. You think like a human. The Council does not think like humans. The Council thinks in terms of control and hierarchy. They have spent 100,000 years building a system where they are at the top. The last thing they want is a new species that might challenge that system. He looked at directly. They hope to slow you down, to discourage you, to make you believe you are nothing so that you stop trying. If that does not work, they have other methods, less gentle methods. Before could respond, the security drones buzzed loudly. This conversation has exceeded acceptable parameters. The human delegation must proceed immediately. Step back, his face suddenly neutral. Of course, I was merely offering condolences for their rejection. No harm done. He turned to leave, then stopped. Without looking back, he spoke one last time. Captain Park, when you return to your world, remember what I have told you. The galaxy is not as united as it appears. There are cracks in the council. There are those who watch you with hope, not fear. A pause. Do not let them break your spirit. That is what they want most of all. He walked away and disappeared into the shadows. The security drones herded the delegation forward. No one spoke. What was there to say? The horizon was waiting for them in the docking bay. Its white hull seemed to glow in the dim light, a small piece of Earth in this alien place. Paused at the airlock, looking back at the corridor one last time. "What do you think, Captain?" asked quietly. Was he telling the truth? "I do not know," admitted. "He could be trying to manipulate us. He could be setting some kind of trap. Or he could be an ally. Maybe, maybe not," turned and walked through the airlock. But one thing he said was true. They are afraid. I saw it in his eyes when spoke about our dreams. I saw it in his voice when she listed our achievements before mocking them. They wanted to make us feel small, but that only works if we let it. The delegation gathered in the main briefing room, sat with his head in his hands. The younger diplomats looked lost, confused, broken. Even the military officers seemed uncertain. Stood at the front of the room and waited until everyone was looking at her. "Today was a defeat," she said simply. "I will not pretend otherwise. We came here hopping for friendship and we received contempt. We came here offering peace and we received mockery. That is the reality." She paused. But reality is not permanent. Reality can be changed. Reality can be shaped by those who refuse to accept it as it is. She pulled up her personal console and began typing. "The Council gave us 24 hours to leave their space. We will use every minute of that time. I want a full scan of this station. Every frequency, every signal, every data packet you can capture. I want you to compile everything we saw today, every species, every reaction, every detail. We are going to learn everything we can about these beings." Looked up, and then what? What can we possibly do? Smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a soldier who had just found a weakness in the enemy's armor. "Then we go home. We tell Earth what happened, and we start preparing for the day when we come back." "They said 10,000 years, someone said. "They said 10,000 years, agreed. "Let us see if we can do it a bit faster." 3 days had passed since the humiliation. The horizon had not left Council space. It was still docked at the station, sitting quietly in its small cargo bay like a sleeping animal. The Council had sent angry messages demanding that the humans leave immediately, had responded politely each time, citing technical difficulties with their hyperspace drive. Repairs were taking longer than expected, terribly sorry for the inconvenience. It was a lie, of course. The horizon was in perfect condition, was simply waiting. On the third day, at exactly 1400 hours Council Standard Time, the Galactic Council gathered for their regular session. 347 species, filling the enormous chamber, ready to discuss trade agreements and territorial disputes, and all the boring business of running a galaxy. High Arbiter took his place at the top of the chamber. Speaker began reading from her tablet. And every screen in the building flickered. The alien faces disappeared, replaced by a single image. A human face, calm, composed, with dark hair pulled back and eyes that burned with quiet intensity. Captain Park looked out at the entire Galactic Council. "Good afternoon," she said. Chaos erupted, signaled frantically to his technicians. cut the feed, remove the intruder, silence her. They could not. Human code had infiltrated every system on the station, not to cause damage, not to steal secrets, but simply to ensure that every screen, every speaker, every display would carry its message. 3 days ago, continued, her voice steady, you invited humanity to present ourselves to this council. We came in peace. We came with open hearts and honest words. We offered friendship. She paused. And you spat in our faces. The chamber had fallen silent. Even the technicians had stopped trying to cut the feed. Every eye was on the screens. You played recordings of our worst moments, our wars, our crimes, our failures. You showed the entire galaxy every mistake we have ever made, every sin we have ever committed. His voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath the surface. You wanted to make us feel ashamed. You wanted to make us feel small. The screens flickered again. The images changed. Now the council was looking at different scenes. A firefighter carrying a child out of a burning building. Doctors working through the night to save lives. Volunteers building homes for people who had lost everything. Strangers helping strangers, expecting nothing in return. You showed our darkness, said, allow me to show our light. More images. Scientists celebrating a breakthrough that would cure a disease. Artists creating beauty that moved people to tears. Musicians playing songs that made the soul soar. Teachers patiently explaining the universe to children whose eyes glowed with wonder. For every war we have fought, we have also made peace. For every city we have destroyed, we have built 100 more. For every act of cruelty, there have been 10,000 acts of kindness. The image changed again. Earth, the small blue planet floating in the darkness of space, so fragile, so beautiful, so alone. This is our home, the pale blue dot, the only world we have ever known. You are right that we have hurt it. You are right that we have made terrible mistakes, but we are also trying to heal it. Every day, more of us wake up to what we have done, and more of us choose to do better. His face returned to the screen. You called us primitives. You said we were too violent, too chaotic, too dangerous to join your council. You told us to come back in 10,000 years. A small smile appeared on her face. I have a different answer. She held up her hand. One finger was extended, hovering over a button on her console. In the council chamber, some aliens shifted nervously. What was she doing? Was this a threat? Was she going to attack them? You asked us to improve ourselves, said, to grow up, to learn peace. You said that perhaps our greats great might be ready for the stars. Her finger pressed the button. Outside the station, space itself seemed to ripple. Points of light appeared, growing larger, taking shape. Ships, human ships, emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation. Not one ship, not 10, not 100. Thousands. The council members rushed to the viewports, their voices rising in shock and disbelief. Ships of every size filled the space around the station. Research vessels, colony ships, exploration cruisers, medical ships, construction ships, a fleet so large it seemed to darken the stars themselves. And they were all human. For 20 years, his voice continued, while we sent our polite messages and waited for your invitation, we were also building, learning, growing, in secret, away from your observers and your spies, because we knew, somehow we always knew, that you would reject us. Data began streaming across the council's screens, technical specifications, scientific achievements, the true level of human technology. It was far beyond what the council had believed. Medical breakthroughs that could extend by centuries, energy systems that made the council's best technology look primitive, materials science that known physics, and most terrifying of all, a line of text that made even the oldest species fall silent. Dimensional fold technology, operational. Only 2 other species in the entire history of the galaxy had ever achieved dimensional fold technology. It allowed ships to move between dimensions, to appear anywhere in the universe instantaneously. It was the ultimate power, the ultimate advantage, the ultimate threat. And humanity had it. Back on the screen's face remained calm. We could have stayed hidden. We could have waited another century, growing stronger, until we were powerful enough to take whatever we wanted. We could have come back as conquerors, as destroyers, as the violent primitives you believe us to be. She shook her head slowly. But that is not who we are. We are humanity. We do not conquer, we do not destroy, we build, we explore. We reach out our hands in friendship even when those hands have been slapped away. The fleet outside the station did nothing hostile. They simply floated there, silent and massive, a demonstration of power that needed no violence to make its point. We did not come here to threaten you, said. We came here to show you who we really are, not the monsters you see in your carefully chosen videos, not the primitives you mock in your council chambers. We are humanity. We fall down and we get back up. We make mistakes and we learn from them. We face the darkness and we choose the light. She looked directly into the camera, directly into the eyes of every being watching. You have a choice now. You can continue to treat us as enemies. You can try to stop us, to contain us, to destroy us. Others have tried. None have succeeded. A pause. Or you can accept us as equals, as partners, as friends. We still offer that hand of friendship, despite everything you have done. Despite the insults and the mockery and the humiliation, we still believe in peace. We still believe in cooperation. We still believe in you. The screen flickered one last time. The choice is yours. We will be waiting for your answer. The transmission ended. The screens returned to normal, and the Galactic Council sat in stunned silence, staring at the thousands of human ships floating outside their windows. For the first time in 100,000 years, the most powerful beings in the galaxy had no idea what to do next. The council chamber was in chaos. Species that had been sitting in polite silence for centuries were now shouting at each other. Diplomats pushed through crowds, trying to reach communication terminals. Security drones flew in confused patterns, not knowing what to do. The entire carefully ordered system that had governed the galaxy for 100,000 years was falling apart in minutes. High Arbiter stood frozen on his platform, his crystalline body flickering with colors that showed his shock and confusion. He had never imagined this. No one had. The humans were supposed to be primitives. They were supposed to go home in shame and stay there for 10,000 years. They were supposed to be nothing. And instead, they had just revealed themselves to be one of the most advanced species in the galaxy. "Get me answers," hissed to his advisors. How did they develop dimensional fold technology? How did they build that fleet without our observers knowing? How is any of this possible? One of his advisors, a small being with too many eyes, scrolled frantically through data. Our observers reported nothing unusual. The humans appeared to be developing normally, slightly faster than average, but nothing concerning. They must have hidden their true progress somehow. Hidden it for 20 years, from our best intelligence networks. Apparently so, High Arbiter. On the floor of the chamber, Ambassador moved through the crowd, his 4 eyes taking in everything. He was not surprised. He had suspected something like this for years. The humans were too clever, too adaptable, too driven to simply accept rejection and go away. He had tried to warn the council once, quietly, carefully. They had ignored him. Now they were paying the price. Speaker pushed through the crowd to reach platform. Her scales were pale with fear. "What do we do?" she demanded. "They have dimensional fold technology. They could destroy this station in seconds. They could destroy everything." "They said they do not want war," replied, though his voice was uncertain. "And you believe them, after what we did to them, after how we humiliated them?" Did not answer. The truth was, he did not know what to believe anymore. Outside the station, the human fleet continued to float in perfect formation. No weapons were powered. No hostile moves were made. They simply existed, a silent demonstration of capability. On the horizon, Admiral appeared on the bridge. He was an older man with a weathered face and calm eyes. He had spent his entire military career preparing for this moment, hoping it would never come, knowing it probably would. "The Council is in chaos," reported from her station. "We are intercepting thousands of communications. Some species are demanding an immediate attack on our fleet. Others are calling for peace negotiations. They have already sent a diplomatic request for direct contact." Nodded as expected. "What about the ones at the top?" "Silent, completely silent. No communications in or out." That was interesting. They were the oldest species in the Council, the ones who had guided its formation 100,000 years ago. They rarely spoke, rarely acted, but when they did, everyone listened. "Keep monitoring," ordered, "and prepare a response team. I expect we will be receiving visitors soon." She was right. Within the hour, a Council shuttle requested permission to approach the horizon. Granted it, the shuttle docked and a delegation stepped aboard. It was led by himself. The High Arbiter walked through the human ship, his crystalline eyes taking in every detail. The clean corridors, the advanced technology, the crew members who looked at him not with fear but with calm confidence. They met in the main briefing room, stood at one end of the table, stood at the other. Between them, the weight of two civilizations. "You have made a mockery of this council," said. His voice was cold but could hear the fear beneath it. "No," she replied evenly. "You did that yourselves. We simply held up a mirror. You lied to us. You hid your true capabilities. That is an act of deception, an act of war." "We did not lie. Your observers asked to see our public facilities. We showed them our public facilities. They never asked to see our hidden programs. They assumed we were too primitive to have them." Slight flickered angrily. "You are playing word games." "I am stating facts. Your council rejected us without ever truly knowing us. You made assumptions based on your own prejudices. You saw what you wanted to see." Gestured toward the viewport where the human fleet was visible. "This is the reality you refuse to acknowledge. This is who we really are." A long silence followed. Finally spoke again, his voice quieter. "What do you want? Resources? Territory? Do you intend to conquer us?" "No, we want exactly what we asked for 3 days ago. Partnership. Cooperation. A seat at your table, not in the gallery of primitives, but as equals." "After everything that has happened." "Yes, despite everything that has happened." Took a step forward. "We are not here for revenge, High Arbiter. We are not here to humiliate you the way you humiliated us. We are here because we believe in a better future. A future where all species work together, learn from each other, grow together." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. She placed it on the table. "This is a data chip containing everything we have learned about dimensional fold technology, the complete research, the technical specifications, everything." Stared at the chip as if it might explode. "You are giving us your greatest advantage. Why?" "Because that is who we are. We do not believe in hoarding knowledge. We do not believe in keeping others weak so that we can stay strong. We believe that when everyone rises, everyone benefits." She pushed the chip toward him. "Take it, share it with your council. Let every species study it. And maybe, when you see how we think, how we operate, you will understand why you should not fear us." Did not take the chip. He stood there frozen, his mind trying to process what was happening. "This is a trick," he said finally. "This must be a trick." "No trick, just humanity." The High Arbiter's light flickered through a dozen colors. For the first time in thousands of years, he did not know what to do. "I must consult with the council," he said. "This is beyond my authority to decide alone." "Of course, take all the time you need. We will be waiting." Turned to leave, then stopped. Without turning around, he asked one final question. Why, after how we treated you, why would you still want peace with us? Considered the question carefully. Because holding onto anger is like holding onto a burning coal. It only hurts the one who holds it. She paused. We have made that mistake too many times in our history. We have learned that peace, even difficult peace, is always better than war. Stood still for a long moment. Then slowly, he reached out and picked up the data chip. I will present your offer to the council, he said, but I cannot promise they will accept. We know, but the offer stands regardless. The High Arbiter walked out of the room, the chip clutched in his crystalline hand. As he passed station, he paused and looked at the young lieutenant. You do not seem afraid of me, he observed. Smiled, should I be? Made a sound that might have been a laugh, or might have been something else entirely. Perhaps not, he said, perhaps not anymore. He left the ship. His shuttle departed, and the human fleet continued to float in the darkness, patient and silent, waiting for the galaxy to decide its own future. The year that followed was the most chaotic in the Council's history. Within days of revelation, the carefully built order of the galaxy began to crack. Species that had quietly resented the Council's leadership for thousands of years suddenly found their voice. They had watched a young civilization stand up to the most powerful beings in the galaxy and survive. More than survive. Thrive. If the humans could do it, they thought maybe we can too. They were the first to act. Ambassador delivered a formal statement to the council, announcing that his empire would be pursuing independent diplomatic relations with humanity, regardless of the council's decision. Within a week, 17 other species had made similar announcements. The council's response was confused and divided. Some members wanted to punish these rebels. Others argued for compromise. Still others simply sat in silence, too shocked to speak. The old systems, the old rules, the old certainties, none of them seemed to work anymore. Fought to maintain control. He held emergency sessions. He made speeches about unity and tradition and the dangers of change. But every time he looked out his window, he saw the human fleet still floating there, a constant reminder that the galaxy had shifted beneath his feet. 3 months after the revelation, the finally spoke. They sent a single representative to the council chamber. She was ancient, her body almost translucent, her voice like wind through dead leaves. She had not spoken in public for 2,000 years. We have watched, she said simply. We have considered and we have decided. The chamber fell absolutely silent. The humans are not our enemies, they could have been. We gave them every reason to hate us. We insulted them. We humiliated them. We tried to make them feel worthless. The ancient looked around the chamber, her eyes resting briefly on. And yet, when they had the power to destroy us, they chose to offer friendship instead. She moved slowly to the center of the chamber. For 100,000 years, this council has operated on fear. Fear of change, fear of new species, fear of losing control. We have told ourselves that this fear keeps us safe, that it maintains order, that it protects us. Her voice grew stronger. It does none of these things. It only makes us weak. It makes us blind to potential allies. It makes us create enemies where none need exist. She turned to face directly. The humans have shown us a different way, a way based on trust instead of fear, on cooperation instead of control, on hope instead of despair. She paused. We believe it is time for the council to choose. Continue on our current path and watch our alliance crumble, or accept the humans as equals and build something new together. The chamber erupted in whispers and murmurs. They rarely gave opinions. They almost never gave commands, but everyone knew that their words carried weight that could not be ignored. Stood alone on his platform, his crystalline form dim and uncertain. He had spent his entire life believing in the old ways, the hierarchy, the control, the careful management of lesser species. Now he was being asked to throw all of that away. For a long moment, he did not speak. Then slowly, he reached into his robes and pulled out a small data chip. The one had given him. He had kept it close ever since that day, unable to decide what to do with it. "I have studied this technology," he said quietly. "I have had my best scientists examine it. They tell me it is genuine, complete. With this knowledge, any species could develop dimensional fold capability within a century." He looked at the chip in his hand. "The humans gave us this freely. No conditions, no demands, just a gift." He looked up at the chamber. "I have ruled this council for 3,000 years. In all that time, no species has ever given us anything without expecting something in return. I thought that was how the universe worked. I thought everyone was like us." He walked to the edge of his platform. "I was wrong." The chamber fell silent. "I move that the Galactic Council extend full membership to the human species, effective immediately. All previous restrictions are withdrawn. All insults are officially apologized for. Let it be recorded in our histories that on this day we chose hope over fear." The vote was not unanimous. A few species refused to accept the change. They from the council entirely, retreating to their own corners of the galaxy. But the vast majority voted yes. Species that had laughed at humans 3 months earlier now welcomed them as equals. The news reached Earth within hours. Celebrations broke out on every continent. For the first time in history, humanity knew for certain that they were not alone and that the universe was willing to accept them. 1 year after the humiliation, a formal ceremony was held in the council chamber. The same chamber where humanity had been mocked and rejected. The same seats that had held laughing aliens now held silent, respectful witnesses. Park walked to the center of the chamber. She wore a simple uniform, the same one she had worn on that first day. She looked up at the tiers of alien faces looking down at her, and she smiled. "I have been asked to say a few words," she said. "They told me this is traditional when a new species joins the council. I thought about giving a long speech about history and progress and the future, but I think I will keep it simple." She looked around the chamber. "1 year ago, you asked humanity a question. You asked if we were ready to join the galaxy. You decided that we were not. You told us to go away and come back in 10,000 years." A few uncomfortable murmurs rippled through the crowd. "I did not accept that answer. Neither did my crew, neither did my planet. We chose to prove that we were ready, whether you believed it or not." She paused. "But today is not about proving anything. Today is about a new beginning. We have been enemies, we have been strangers. Now we have a chance to be friends. Let us not waste it." She raised her hand in a gesture of greeting, a simple wave, the kind any human might give to a neighbor. "My name is Park. I am a human from Earth, and I am very, very happy to meet all of you." The chamber applauded. Not the mocking applause of a year ago, but genuine, warm, welcoming applause. Species from 100 different worlds making noise in 100 different ways, all expressing the same thing. "Welcome." After the ceremony, a journalist from an alien news network approached. He had a dozen eyes and a voice like grinding stones. "Captain Park," he said, "your species was humiliated by the council. They called you primitives. They said you would destroy yourselves within 3 centuries. How do you feel about them now?" Considered the question. "Humanity does not forget," she said finally. "We remember everything, every insult, every cruelty, every injustice." She paused. "But we also remember every kindness, every act of courage, every moment when someone chose to do the right thing instead of the easy thing." She looked around the chamber, at the aliens who had once despised her species and now welcomed them. "We do not forget, but we do forgive, and we always, always rise." The journalist nodded and moved away, appeared at side. "That was a good answer," she said. "It was the truth." Looked out the window at the stars. "We have so much work to do, so many bridges to build, so many old wounds to heal." Do you think we can do it? Smiled, it was a real smile this time, warm and hopeful. We are human, she said. We always find a way. Outside, the stars burned bright against the darkness. A trillion worlds, a trillion possibilities, a trillion chances to build something better. And somewhere among them, a small blue planet orbited a yellow star, home to a species that had learned the most important lesson of all. It is not how many times you fall that matters. It is how many times you get back up. And humanity always gets back up.